righty. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2. Yeah. Let me check the audio. All righty. 1 2 1 2, y'all. Um, yeah, this has been a very eventful few days, regarding the fires in California. And I just want to take a moment. I know I haven't been online, but I want to take a moment to send my heartfelt uh, prayers and heartfelt thoughts, you know, and energy to the people that have lost their homes in California, people that have lost their businesses and their livelihoods in California right now. It's a terrible thing to have to go through, and to the people that are out there actually saving lives and making a difference, actually doing something. You guys are heroes. You guys are nothing less than heroes, that are getting your hands dirty, putting your hands on the ground, you know, getting out there and doing something that helps another person that is in distress make it to the next point where they can possibly, you know, have family members, have assistance, and to, provide a little bit of foundation so they can get on with the next stage of their lives, whatever actions they have to take. And you know that in the United States, that is not always and quite often not an easy event for many, for the multitude of people. And yeah, it's really not a good thing what is going on, but people have to have the conversations, people have to have the discussions. And as you can see, a lot of this reminds me so much of 9/11. This reminds me so much of 9/11. Just the series of events, the rollout of the disinformation, but also the fact that there are reports that are saying that, this is arson that occurred. Now I don't know how much. I'm going to go into it and see what I can find. I'm not into playing with people's lives, so I'm not going to put out things that I just can't substantiate myself. You see, that I can't find reliable news sources or multiple news sources um, that back up the claims. Like, we do know that there were people starting fires. That um, whether they intended things to be the way they are right now, that that has to be investigated. And if that is the case, if it is the case that there's some sort of conspiracy on the ground, which it really has to be investigated in detail. But you don't have to look far to kind of figure out what those possibilities can be, if that is, because people have, there are terrorist groups that understand very well what harm they can do by setting fires. That's a no-brainer, and it has happened before. And they do have people, terrorist groups, not home, what do you call it, American terrorist groups that are inside of inside of, not the government, but inside of the US, that are extremists and plan on causing people harm. And that is how they see their way of fighting the government. And you can find enough of this among white supremacist groups. I'm not saying that that's what this was. This could be it could be something more. It could be some foreign attack. It could be coordinated by foreign actors and white supremacists. Did you know it's global? Do you know they communicate globally? So you can't put those things out of there. But if you're going to talk about conspiracies, look at the ones that have already been reported existing and happening that the federal government, FBI, that are already well aware of because they have facts to substantiate those claims. But again, I'm not saying that. I think people should take a step back for a second and, you know, really, really begin to think about what they're doing. And I'm talking about all Americans. What's up, Wab? Yo, what's up, brother? Yeah, people, let me also drop the link. I got a little bit of time today. I know it's late in the morning. Wab, you here because of the time difference. You know what I'm saying? Thanks to you, bro. Um, yeah, and anybody that wants to hop up can hop up. But, I think people need to take a step back and not play politics with this because, well, my fear and my suspicion is that this is not the only disaster Americans are going to come to see. Um, Not at all. And it's going to behoove Americans to start wanting to help each other, instead of and set clear messages of the care you have for another American, sending clear messages, and clear acts. That would be my suggestion for Americans right now, because if you don't value what you have, you are very, there's always a chance you could lose it. You see what I mean? And even if you do value, even if I'm talking about value the entire nation, I'm not talking about value what you have as an individual, because you see how that can go. And my message to the lower classes that are getting into these conspiracy theories, and that are very divisive instead of unifying, my advice to you is you better start thinking past step one and think about down the line what could happen, what could be the effects, because you may very well find yourself in a similar situation, you know, where the disaster hits your community. And now people are out there with all the conspiracy theories that don't do any help for you at all. So it's up to you which direction you go. Now, before you even get to the conspiracy theories, right, you have to admit and you have to just submit to the facts. And the facts of the matter, the facts of the matter are very simple. Um, Let me see here. Can this actually play? Can this one actually play? Let me see something. If I can get it to play out. Oh, you know what? I think I can, but hold on. If I go like this, the facts of the matter is that the United States is more than 20 years behind climate change already, and climate experts had issued the warning long ago. And political parties felt, called it a scam. Political parties called it a scam for decades, right? And it's not even necessary to say what political party called it a scam for decades, because everybody knows, right? But it is facts that they called it a scam for decades. Here.
The USA's challenges in advancing climate change initiatives are multifaceted and rooted in political, economic, social, and structural factors. Here's an overview. 1. Political polarization. Climate change has become a deeply politicized issue in the US, with stark divisions between political parties. While Democrats generally support robust climate action, many Republicans have been resistant, often questioning climate science or prioritizing economic concerns over environmental regulations. Policies are often stalled or reversed with changes in administration, example the Trump administration rolling back many of Obama's climate policies. 2. Fossil fuel interests. The U.S. has significant fossil fuel industries, including coal, oil, and natural gas. These sectors wield substantial influence through lobbying, campaign donations, and advertising. Many regions depend economically on fossil fuels, leading to resistance against policies perceived to threaten local jobs. 3. Economic concerns. There is often a tension between short-term economic growth and long-term environmental sustainability. Industries and politicians argue that stringent climate regulations could hurt businesses, increase energy prices, and lead to job losses. The decentralized nature of the U.S. economy means states and industries often prioritize their immediate economic interests. For individualism and consumer culture, the U.S. has a deeply ingrained culture of individualism and high consumption, making collective action and lifestyle changes challenging. Resistance to mandates, example on energy efficiency, transportation, or consumption, often arises due to fears of government overreach. 5. Federal versus state authority. The U.S. federal system divides powers between federal and state governments, leading to inconsistencies. While some states, example California, New York, are leaders in climate initiatives, others actively resist or undermine such efforts. Federal climate initiatives often face legal challenges from states or industries. 6. Misinformation campaigns. Decades of misinformation funded by fossil fuel interests have sown doubt about climate science, delaying public awareness and policy action. Media coverage sometimes amplifies skepticism by presenting both sides of the climate debate, even when the scientific consensus is clear. 7. Infrastructure challenges. The U.S. has an aging and fossil fuel-dependent infrastructure, from transportation to energy grids, making transitions to clean energy more complex and costly. Retrofitting such systems requires massive investment and time. 8. Global responsibility perception. Some Americans argue that countries like China and India, which are now the largest carbon emitters, should bear more responsibility, overlooking the U.S. historical role as the largest cumulative emitter. 9. Slow policy adoption. The legislative process in the U.S. is slow, and climate policies often face procedural hurdles such as filibusters, lobbying pressures, or legal challenges. Progress and hope. Despite these challenges, the U.S. has made strides, particularly at local and state levels. Many cities, corporations, and organizations are committed to reducing emissions. The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 represents a significant federal effort to promote clean energy and reduce emissions. However, addressing these systemic barriers will require sustained bipartisan commitment, public support, and international cooperation.
Yes. So now let me go back a little bit into here. Let me ask a question. How many decades? How far how far back was hold on, how many years is the USA behind in terms of change initiatives? Climate change initiatives. Right. Let's see here. I mean, I already have a general idea. I don't ask questions that I don't have a little bit of understanding of already, but I like to get a deep, detailed, comprehensive uh, answer for folks. Assessing how many years the United States is behind climate change initiatives compared to other countries is complex as it depends on various factors, including policy implementation, technological advancement, and international commitments. However, several key points provide insight into the U.S. position. Historical context. The U.S. has been a significant contributor to the global greenhouse gas emissions and has played a pivotal role in the international climate negotiations. However, policy approaches have varied with different administrations, leading to periods of both progress and regression. For instance, the U.S. withdrew from the Paris Agreement during the Trump administration and rejoined after President Biden. Recent development. So we were already members of that under Obama and before under Obama. Then Trump comes in, steps out of the climate change active thing, the Paris Accords, and then Then, Biden becomes president and he comes back in it. And now people, as you hear, Trump is likely expected to hop back out. Recent developments: the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA 2022, marked a substantial investment in U.S. climate change. That happened under Biden 2022, aimed to reducing, and that was passed through Congress and the Senate, and called for, more importantly, called for by the president for Congress to take action. And Congress indeed took action. The Senate took action, aiming to reduce emissions and promote clean energy. This legislative effort has been viewed as a significant step forward, aligning U.S. climate initiatives with global standards. Um, my God. In any case, if you ask me, I've heard this and I've seen some of the differences because the country I live in, Denmark, they acted on the Paris Climate Accords. They actually had a meeting here, a UN meeting for climate change in Denmark. Maybe like what was it? How many years ago was it? Let me see. When was the first climate climate summit summit in Denmark? Let me see. It's not that long ago. 15, 10 years ago, 20, something like that. Um, let's see here. Right. 2009, y'all. So you're looking at 15 years, 16 years almost. Um, and when Denmark did this, when they had the meeting in Copenhagen, December 7th, Denmark came out strong into action on the ground. On the ground. Um, you got to understand, Denmark has 80% of its power lines already buried because of initiatives like this. Power lines that affect businesses and homes. So that means when flooding happens, hurricane happens, the people still, people have an edge up, an advantage on survival. And folks have to understand how much of a difference that makes in your life. Now, let me read some of Wab's comments, but it's clear, even before this, it had already been said, according to experts, because the experts were speaking before the meets and the summits on this issue. The experts sounded the alarm even before this. I would say the U.S. is about 30, between 30 to 20 to 30 years behind um, in climate change, meaning the U.S. climate experts, had noted using science that there was impending danger coming of all types to average Americans because of climate change. And it became a political issue after that. Republicans wanted, they don't believe in climate change. Trump's party does not believe in climate change. They have said it. And if you are so irresponsible as a political party to say things you don't mean, then that is even more absurd. That's even more absurd because that's not how you get stuff done on the floor of Congress or in the Senate. That's not how you get action, by saying things you don't believe. If you want things to happen, you must state what you believe can work and what you believe is going on and allow folks to vote on it. Yeah, let me see here. That word action is a misnomer. So many serious issues regarding Gavin Newsom. Now he's thrown Bass under the bus. Yet, in a fire hazard state, he was more concerned with tackling homelessness. Nah, that's not, bro. I don't agree with that statement, Wab, because the reality is that I've already been looking into it, man. I mean, I'm on social media and I got so many friends that are sharing information. And sometimes I get in arguments with them because all I have to do is check every single thing that they say. Yo, Gavin Newsom has invested more in climate change. We talking to, let me go get the figures, bro. First of all, than any governor in history. They said that the state of California divested 100 million, but they also at the same time went in up in the billions. California, So let me see here. So that's the thing about it, disinformation. And what's very key here, common, is that with disinformation, the folks who have been leading the fights are getting the blame, not the people who aren't leading the fight, not the folks that aren't leading the fight. And keep in mind, climate change should not be a state issue alone, because what one state does definitely, without any exception at all, affects the next state and the next state and the next state. Come on, this is a this is but hold on, let me just appease this thought for a second, because like I said, a lot of disinformation is out there. How much has California invested in climate change under Gavin? I think it's Gavin. But here's the thing. I don't blame people for coming across disinformation, because almost more disinformation sources on social media than there are real sources. And how do you spell his name? Newsom, governor. Okay, let's see what it says here. Yeah. Here we go. Look at this, brother. It's just there's no comparison. They've invested more than any other state, and it's just pure lies coming out about them. And it's shameful lies, because these lies are in fact hurting and harming people. Now, man. All right, let me let this play.
Under Governor Gavin Newsom's administration, California has made substantial investments in combating climate change, though recent budget constraints have led to proposed reductions in funding. Key investments and funding adjustments. Cap and Trade Program. Over the past decade, California's Cap and Trade Program has generated $28 billion for climate initiatives, with $11 billion already allocated to over 500,000 projects aimed at reducing emissions and pollution. Cite Turn Search. Budget reductions. Facing a projected $39 billion budget deficit, Governor Newsom's 2024 budget proposal includes a $2.9 billion reduction in climate-related programs, along with $1.9 billion in deferred expenditures to future years. The 2023-2024 budget, addressing a $22.5 billion deficit, proposes cutting $6 billion from environmental and climate programs. Climate resiliency projects. Despite financial challenges, the state continues to fund key projects to enhance infrastructure resilience against climate impacts. Cite Turn Search 1. In summary, while Governor Newsom's tenure has seen significant investments in climate change initiatives, recent fiscal challenges have necessitated budget adjustments, impacting the scale and timing of these investments. Nav list. Recent developments in California's climate policy. Turn News 8, Turn News 9, Turn News 11.
Right. So, it's like, in a sense, your climate change, again, is not a state issue. And that is the biggest problem in the United States. Oh, here we go. It's that the federal government is not allotting, it has under Biden, but it's late under Biden. It had been fought for just so much time, and it's utterly a shame and a catastrophe that it took so long for United States citizens to get behind, and their representatives to get behind saving their own lives on the federal level. These kind of events are clearly federal government business. If you don't have California functioning, you are losing a lot of. If the California people can't go to work tomorrow, do you realize how much money you're going to miss from the economy? They pay federal taxes, and I think that's the issue here. A state is not supposed to go broke and then all of a sudden spend all their money, have nothing left. What you going to do? You see what I mean? And I think That's the point of it. They can't win. They can't win by doing it alone. And California has been doing it alone, and they lost. I think that's pretty much what that proved. But Wab, you there, bro? I can hear you. Oh, there you go. Your mic. You there? I can't hear you, Wab. Let me see something here. Let me just try to see if I can see what the settings are in here. I can't hear you, Wab. I'm sorry about that, bro. Um, yeah, I'm not really sure why, but you on your cell phone, or you on your desktop, or what? Try to come in on your desktop if you can, if you're using your cell phone, or the opposite. You know, try the opposite. But let me see if I can read your comments here. Um, Yeah, but the homelessness grew. It's true what you're saying. And Gavin Newsom also invested greatly in in homelessness. Man, they created something like, let me see how many houses were created. I'm talking about for low income people. How many houses did Gavin Newsom did California invest in building for the lower classes and poor in California? And plus, see, they even like using money now. I mean, Cali's definitely going into a deficit now for sure. They tried to avert it, but under Gavin Newsom's administration, California has made significant investment in affordable housing to address state housing crisis. Here's the overview. And again, there's all sources for this information. It's not just somebody making it up on Chat GDP. They're taking the information from different public news sources that have done the data, right? And they're cross correlating them. It's not just taking one and saying this is the truth. It's cross correlating from a wide spectrum, right wing, left wing sources, all these sources, and then giving you the facts. Investment and funding. State spending since Gavin Newsom took in office 2019 has allocated substantial funds towards affordable housing. Reports indicate that approximately 18.5 billion has been spent on affordable housing initiatives, home plus initiatives. September 2024, Governor Newsom, this is before the fire, announced the release of guidance on up to 2.2 billion in funding for home key permanent supportive housing programs with half reserves for veterans. And again, this so look, hold on, let me go on. This does not include federal money. This is not federal investment in homeless. This is not federal investment in the poor. That's not what's going on here. Affordable units build, that has to come later. Biden just passed that. It takes time to have a rollout. You see what I mean? But this is already before this initiative. So affordable units before the Biden infrastructure investment act hit the ground. This is before, and that just hit the ground. So you can't really point to what is done because it just started. States are just starting to get allocated funds. Despite the significant financial investment, the state has faced challenges meeting its housing goals. Approximately 57,000 affordable housing units have been developed, with about 10,000 units currently under construction. Overhaul housing production between 2019 and 2023, local governments in California permitted about 6,500 new homes, uh, permitted. That means gave permission. They signed off on them. These homes are built well according to the law, right? Plumbing, electricity, la la la. All these different standards that they have. This is 650 new homes between 2019 and 2023, averaging 110,000 units per year. That's that's incredible. But at the same time, You know, what do you do? Do you and here's the thing, Web. Here's the thing, man. At the same time, Gavin Newsom is getting blamed, irresponsibly blamed, um, falsely blamed for, not spending or doing enough for climate change when they're the state that has done probably the most outside of New York, right? He's also getting blamed by people saying he's not doing enough for homeless, for lower wage workers, you know. And this is where the disinformation comes in. It's 2 seconds, y'all. Clear my throat. I'm sorry. And so there's a lot of disinformation out there, but let's see here. With these new global credit edicts, China is offsetting its population by manufacturing green production credits. I mean, I don't think this is China has an interest in working in climate change. They invest in climate change and technology, and they're not having a fight about it with the Republicans. And at the same time, at the same time, you know, you know, America. At the same time, people in the United States are not cheering about climate change. What you have is a hostile political party that is your enemy regarding climate change. That is what you don't have in China because China is basically one party rule. You see what I mean? So, I mean, I don't think people should celebrate China in that way. Um, but you have to acknowledge that they've made investments. But I'm not comparing China to the U.S. and their investment. Um, the clear matter is that if the United States does not invest in this, there are other nations that have, even Western nations, to point to that have invested way more interest in climate change infrastructure. So I think I don't want to cheer China on. China got supposedly, as they say. I mean, I'm going to say as they say, but if you want to disprove this, go out there and disprove it. But it's been said for a minute that China got like over 1 million Muslims in internment camps, doing hard labor, manufacturing, trying to convince them to not be Muslims, essentially. But other factors as well. But they have had some building, but there's also controversy about the buildings that they've been making for folks. Like buildings they finding out are basically fraud. They got money from the state. It looks good on paper, but when you go, people aren't living in the buildings because they're not actually livable. Which is odd. But I don't want to focus on China so much, but the United States and Americans need to understand that China is investing. They have 1 billion people. They have a big economy, right? And it is going to have an impact when you are going to depend on China for tech that you will need, when you're not producing it. And this has been a big issue. It's kind of juxtaposed. Yeah, it is juxtaposed. The Western countries can reduce emissions, but you get more credits by supplying Western countries with manufacturing that reduces emissions. China is literally getting credits for polluting. I mean, I don't see it that way, Wow. To be honest with you, I don't see it so simple, right? And I'm not trying to say that you're simple minded because I know you're not. But I mean, just that argument, I don't see it as being that simple, right? And again, I think there's a lot of challenges that all nations face, all nations with climate change, and I think you just have to applaud when someone does it, no matter who they are. Applaud when they do it because listen, what China does to reduce emissions, but also and create clean energy. Also, climate sustainable tech. You see what I mean? Materials, things like that. Because the homes are going to burn up. You can't build homes like they built them in 1970. They will burn up. You have to build homes that can survive climate events. So I don't have anything against technology, period, no matter who's producing it, because you're going to need it in China's emissions. Like I said, even them being involved in tech, even them creating materials. I mean, it has an effect on everybody, a positive effect on everyone, because if the emissions are created in China, that shit just goes up in the air and comes right to America. If it's created in America, it just goes right up in the air and goes into Europe, the winds. That's the trade winds for you. If it's produced in Europe, it just goes right up in the air and goes right over to Asia. You see what I mean? The Middle East and Asia. You see? So I think my approach is to not politicize it, and to just caution people, don't go for the talking points that are politicized, because it is there not to be of much use to people right now. You know what I mean? Like, people had a time to vote. That was November 7th, right? November 6th, 7th, right? 2024. And American people did what they do. United States citizens did what they do according to what they believe, and they either voted or didn't vote according to their belief. And the result is they didn't want to keep Biden in office, a president that believes in climate change, a president that invested in climate initiatives, um, to the tune of like $2 trillion. They didn't want that. That was something they wanted to punish. So it's like there's a lot of information out there, disinformation about um, climate change. After all, Trump was the party. The Republicans were the party that said they don't believe in it. So it's something real shady going on here. But yeah, but I hear you. To a lot of people, wow, it does sound like the system is cheating. You're rewarding the bad people. Mm, I do think it's unfair, but I think there is some inconsistencies. Not I believe that's the better word. There's some inconsistencies, and when you're getting up, standing up, and doing something new, you got to do it for a minute to get good at it. And I don't think the United States is good at it, and I think they're good at figuring out. The population is good at focusing on all kinds of reason why pedophiles are in the Democratic Party. They spent years talking about this, that alone, you know, and none of the conversation, a lot of the conversation that people had over social media was had nothing to do with climate change. They had almost zero interest in talking about climate change, like it wasn't going to affect their lives. So I think the key thing here for Americans, and I know you're not American, Web, which is probably why but you're in Australia, they're going to have some climate change stuff to it. That's what I want to hear about, actually, too, because climate change is in Australia. It's burning up. Climate change is everywhere. Hey, Break Room, how you doing, sister? Um, so I think things that lead people away from taking climate change serious and doing something about climate change, demanding that the federal government do more about climate change, and demanding that states that don't have programs allotting, funding to do their part, that they get, penalized. That's what I would say. Um, and of course, a lot of people are going to say you're forcing something that is like, you know, that is they try to say it's like, you're being communist or you're being socialist when you penalize people for just doing what they want to do. It's my right, I get to do what I want to do. Well, it needs to be some penalization on some level. um it didn't happen at the voting box, and you know ultimately the federal government is not should not just allow states to circumvent the safety of others. And if you're a safety hazard, it needs to be taken up on the federal level like it always is. And climate change is a safety issue at this point. So I think people need to just sober up, um, stop, you know, trying to chase down the conspiracy when the conspiracy is right in your face. You're late on climate change initiative. That's the conspiracy. Folks, didn't want the investment. Certain people didn't want the investment, to do anything. They didn't want that. Industry didn't do that. The gas and oil companies don't want it. They're lobbying against it. Now let me go back to one point here about the here it is. Let's go here about the climate change here, because there's a part here where they mentioned corporations spreading disinformation challenges. Let me just type it in to bring it back up. What what industries promote disinformation about climate change regularly or are against it for one reason or another, or against? Yeah, well, let's see here. I know my typing thing is messed up right now. There we go. Let's see here. I don't think it's I meant to say industries. Some of these industries, they're spending billions to deceive fossil fuel companies. Look, several industries have been known to promote disinformation or resist climate change initiatives due to concerns about financial losses, regulatory restrictions, or shifts in public opinion. Here are the key industries. They're worried about their money, the fossil fuel companies. Primary actors: oil, gas, and coal companies. Reason for opposition: transitioning to renewable energy directly threatens their profitability and market share. Yeah, stockholders. Disinformation tactics, funding studies and think tanks to cast doubt on climate change. You got people like Joe Rogan, promoting it to young people, the young TikTokers. You have, a whole Republican Party that's promoting it to their constituency. Um, Funding studies and think tanks to cast doubt on climate science. ExxonMobil's historical funding on climate denial campaigns. Lobbying against climate policies such as carbon taxes and renewable energy mandates. Promoting narratives about job losses or economic decline from climate policies. It's all disinformation. Automotive industry, primary actors: car manufacturers resistant to fuel efficiency standards and electric vehicle mandates. Reason for opposition. And this is the ridiculous part about it. American car manufacturers are like Ford and different companies. They are making L bills. They're just selling them in Europe. Like seriously. Why? Because Europe doesn't want Tesla. They'll take the other car companies. They don't want Tesla, and it's nothing. It's because Elon Musk tried to undermine their own policies on climate change. Elon Musk tried to undermine their own policies on taxes or companies that taxes that people pay for driving a car. Nations that have good public transport systems, and that are up to date, they tend people in those societies tend not to use cars anyway for that much. It might be a special event. It might be a trip to the countryside that a family might rent a car and do that. Um, some business people, they will use cars, of course. Business people will use cars because they're traveling back and forth maybe for an hour drive at a time. But a lot of people don't give a damn about a car in countries that have up to date public transportation. To be honest with you, I don't have a car anymore. I even got a parking space, private parking space, that don't even have a car in it right now, because the bottom line is I can hop on the train and get anywhere I need without even having to drive. I can sit back. I can hop on the train, the bus, and it's timely, it's working. I can just get on those things and just enjoy my YouTube in the morning and my cup of coffee instead of driving and having to look at the road. I mean, reasons for opposition: increased costs for retooling production lines and potential reduced profit from international combustion engines. Disinformation tactics again. These are the car companies now lobbying against stricter emission standards, campaigning to delay electric vehicle EV adoption, or promoting alternatives like hydrogen fuel in context to where EVs are more viable. Agriculture, livestock industry, primary actors, industrial farming corporations, and livestock procedures. Reasons for opposition: regulations on methane emissions from cattle and fertilizer use could increase costs. Disinformation tactics: downplaying the impact of methane emissions on global warming. Opposing plant based diets and promoting misinformation about sustainable agricultural practices. Chemical and plastic companies. This is number four industries that have promoted disinformation against climate change. um, Chemical and plastic industry, primary actors, producer of plastics, pesticides, and other chemicals. Reason for opposition: concerns over bans on single use plastic and stricter environmental regulations. Disinformation tactics that they used in the plastic, chemical, and plastic industry. Disinformation tactics: promoting recycling myths and deflect attention from plastic productions, downplaying the environmental and climate impact on chemical manufacturing. Look, construction, construction and real estate, primary actors, developers, and construction firms. Reason for opposition: retrofitting buildings for energy efficient and meeting green standards increase costs. Man, this is a disaster. Disinformation tactics they use: lobbying against green building codes, promoting narratives that sustainable building materials are less durable or cost effective. Transportation, aviation, and shipping, primary actives. This is, who do you think this is? You know, Jeff, what's his name? The owner of Amazon, and folks like it, right? Because that's pretty much what it is, right? A shipping company, a storage and shipping company moving shit around everywhere. Look, primary actors. I mean, because Amazon got planes, they got cars, they got trucks, vans. Primary actors, airlines, and shipping companies. Reasons for opposition: stricter emissions regulations would increase operational costs. Disinformation tactics: climate claiming that the industry specific emissions reductions are impractical or economically damaging. Promoting carbon offset programs as sufficient solution while avoiding systemic change. Yeah, and I'm not just saying Amazon, it's like, shipping companies, period. Get some L trucks out on the road. Invest in it. Put pressure on the car companies because they already have it. Look, there's other countries that already have L trucks, 16 wheeler L trucks, ship moving stuff around, and they're working on reducing it year by year, but they have standards. Um, there's funding. There should be funding, if you ask me, for these companies, but as you know, corruption exists. And when a company spends years expressing um, a, uh, uh, a lack of content about not being content about transferring over into EV vehicles, you know, you could also expect that there will be some initial corruption there to kind of thwart the initiative, to say, see, it didn't work. See, something didn't happen right. Financial sector. This is crazy when the money people are like, hey, we get more money in our banks when, people deny climate change. Primary actors, banks and investors heavily tied to fossil fuel projects. Reasons for opposition, divestment from that. This just means the fossil fuel companies use their banks. Reasons for opposition, divestment from fossil fuels could reduce profits and force significant portfolio restructuring. They act like restructuring is reduction. It's like, come on, change is not a loss. Change is a win if you actually look into it and try to, and to see how it affects people's lives. It's crazy, man. Disinformation tactics, lobbying to weaken financial regulations on green investments. Yep. Lobbying to weaken financial regulations on green investments. Funding studies that question the economic feasibility of renewable energy transition. They're fighting it all the way, all the way. Media and advertising. Primary actors. Media companies funded by fossil fuel advertising and other industries resist climate action. Reason for opposition: financial dependence on advertising revenue from industries that oppose climate change. Disinformation tactics, spreading doubt about climate science, providing platforms that climate denial narratives, platforms for climate denial narratives, or both sides of reporting. I mean, common disinformation themes across industries. Climate science is uncertain and exaggerated. Next one. Economic collapse or job loss will result from climate policies. Exactly. False. Renewable energy is unreliable or inefficient. False. Individual actions are sufficient, shifting focus away from systemic change. False. By creating and amplifying such narratives, these industries aim to delay or weaken meaningful climate action, often prioritizing short term profits over long term sustainability. And I think folks need to just get with the times, take the signs for what they are, and get real, get serious before it's you. In your neck of the woods, it may not be fires. Your neck of the woods, it might be flooding. Your neck of the woods, it might be, electrical lines getting knocked over by hurricanes, and by tornadoes. These winds were not expected um, in January in California. This is an abnormal act. This is an extremity. This is because it is become more volatile, the weather patterns. So it was not predicted that this would hit, anything like this would hit in January. Um, and so were people prepared? No, states weren't prepared because states generally don't, they prepare for things when seasons hit. You know, Florida is preparing for a tornado, hurricane season. They don't expect a hurricane right now. You see what I mean? The Midwest, tornado season. Are they expecting tornadoes right now? No. And it's the same for California. You wouldn't be expecting forest fires right now, especially not like this. You see, that's what climate change is. It does the unexpected, it attacks your weakest points because it's unexpected and it's more extreme than it was before. So I hope people are going to make a serious investment in getting ahead of this issue, because right now it looks like the United States of America is headed for some serious internal issues um, regarding climate. And who are the people that are affected? There's more disinformation out there. Folks, I've seen all kinds of stuff on social media. I mean, it's crazy. There's people talking about this is a reaction to Gaza, you know, this is what happens when and I was just like, wow, that is so insane, to even think that, to not believe, to not just call it what it is, climate change. Um, you know, to not just call it, I mean, to think that you would try to parallel, um, I guess maybe in some kind of way it is. If people committed arson, yeah. But listen, arson would not be able to do so much without the climate change problem. Come on, you ever been out to the forest before? Have you ever seen trees? Healthy trees that aren't dried out, it's not just so easy to just spark something and get it to catch on fire. No, it's the dryness, the climate change that allows that spark to be so effective. And any case, let me go to the news, y'all. Thanks for listening. Let's see what the deal is here. Let me drop the link again too. Wow, try to hop up if you got another source. I don't know what that's about, but um you're not the only one that said it was difficult, but then again, other people say it's not. You see what I mean, bro? So I think it's yeah, but it's a new platform. I'm using one stream just to check it out because I don't want to be holding to one platform. And so I've been using StreamYard in the past. I used that for a lot, months, and maybe almost a year, damn near. And I wanted to try some different ones because, when you just use the same company, all the company is going to do is raise the prices on you. You see? So I don't think we need to be loyal to these tech companies because they are basically trying to get every penny out of people that they can. And I'm not saying one stream is bad. That's why I actually changed because I want to give some new companies a chance. But companies like StreamYard, they just doubled their fees, which is like, what's the excuse for doubling? you know so I guess they thinking people aren't so tech savvy or aren't going to take an alternative, which is not a good idea for folks. You need to try alternatives and see what the deal is. Now let me go over to this. Whew, man, let me see here. There were black families. um Roland Martin, he actually had folks on there that were affected by this. And there's some disinformation out there that is making it seem like, being disinformation being spread by some black folks, and they're acting like black folks ain't affected by this. They're literally telling lies that affect other black people like them in another state. You know, and that's what's just so insane. A black person, particularly when it comes to news, I'm not saying that news has a color or news has a race or news has an ethnicity or news has a religion. No, facts have none of that. But to not want to substantiate things or qualify things through going out there and tapping different sources, particularly your own folks on the ground, that's qualifying. That's a qualifying thing. That doesn't mean you believe everything they say, but it's qualifying. It helps you understand what the overall numbers really speak to. And right now, I've seen on social media, I've seen black folk that live in other states spread disinformation, spread lies about what's going on in California. They got every other theory except climate change. The new theory is, um, one of I mean, these people go for any theories, y'all. I'm telling you, they'll go for contradicting theories. How can you go for two theories that contradict uh, each other yet are still not the facts, still aren't the truth? How do you do that? You do that through always trying to go down that rabbit hole And instead of just qualify the facts, just qualify them. Go seek the facts from the government, news agencies, even reputable news agencies, climate news agencies. Why don't you? And then pick up the phone and find out, call some folks that you know in California. You don't know no folks in California? I do. I ain't seen them in a hot minute. And they're likely affected by this fire. By the way, we had a sister here that was affected, probably likely affected by climate change. They used to roll through here all the time. Oh my God. What's the sister's name? She used to always come through with the morning coffee. Sister with the afro. Love me fruit. Love my fro. I call it love me fruit. Let's pray. Let's send some positive energy out to love me fruit. Because she's used to come to, she's one of the people that's one supporter that's been coming through here. She's in California. She's in California. Real people's lives are being affected. And when people's lives are being affected, the last thing you need to do is hit them with disinformation about their lives. You know, so any of y'all that want to know what's going on, you know what I'm saying, out there, you know, try to contact and listen to some folk that live there in California and listen to what they say. Let's see here. Oh my God. First, before I go to Roland, I'm sorry. Yo, Roland has been on fire lately, really dropping some fact bombs on people. Kudos to Roland Martin. Folks that don't like Roland Martin and make fun of his voice or his hair or his physical stature or whatever, or his background, have his ethnicity or whatever the hell you want to call it. Shame on you. You're buffoons. You need to go for the facts. Okay? You need to get behind your prejudice and listen to the facts. Just listen to the words that are being said. Don't go with your heart about, the voice, the sound of the voice, the ethnicity. Don't, decide, these kind of things. Don't do it. Political party. Roland has been really, kudos to Roland and the Black Star Network, like straight up. But let me see here. Biden, Cali. Here we go. Biden issued a statement. I haven't heard it all, but let me take a listen to it now. I'm even scared to even support some of these networks and even play some of them because I don't think they did enough regarding the facts. Um, in the past election, I think companies need to stand up and stand strong against disinformation, and the corporations. You've had a right to operate in the United States. You've had a right to make money. You've had a right to become very, very successful, more successful than any other companies in the world, private companies. You need to do your job and not spread disinformation. And even further, combat it. Combat disinformation. But here, let's see here. Marquise, what's up, brother? Good to see you, man. So survivors of this catastrophe, Biden said, you need to go to, is it, let me hear that one more time. disasterassistance.gov. Disaster assist. Oh, there's no. Oh, okay. Let me play that back. Let me see something. Thanks for telling me, Marquise. Straight up. Tell me if you can hear it now. Let me know if you can hear this. Hold on. Can you hear that now? Let me know if you can hear Biden's statement now. Okay, let me just check this out real quick. 2 seconds. I'm gonna check it out on my TV. Boom. Yeah, here we go. $2 seconds, y'all. Sorry about that. Oh, okay, I see. All right, let me do this. I'm gonna pull it out, and then I'm going to remove this, and then bring it back up. See if that helps. Stop sharing the screen. Let's see if I,
As the fire started, I approved the fire management assistance grants, which is a fancy phrase for saying the grants to cover the cost of firefighting federally, and the gear, equipment, capabilities like search and rescue. Then I immediately approved at the governor's request a major disaster declaration, which will pay for things like debris removal, temporary lodging, first responder overtime pay. Both of these, the grants and the declaration, usually cover 75% of the state's cost. But yesterday I directed the federal government will cover
okay, it's working now.
100% of the state cost for 180 days. I also announced FEMA has turned on its critical needs assistance program. This program gives one-time payment of $750 to survivors so they can quickly purchase critical items like water, formula, gasoline, and prescription drugs. And survivors should go to disasterassistance.gov or call 1-800-621-3362. We can't help you if we don't know you need the help. So call disasterassistance.gov, contact or call 1-800-621-3362.
Now, speaking of disinformation, there is a movement right now online to stop Americans from contacting the federal government. I mean, this is how incredulous it's been. This is the same thing that happened during the hurricane. People put out, there's folks that was trying to make up lies. Oh, they didn't do this and they didn't do that. If you need help, come here, send, request assistance from here. A lot of disinformation. And it's the same thing this time around. You know, trying to get people to not hold the federal government accountable. Not that they're to blame for this, but to not do their part, because the movement in the U.S. by the wealthy has always been to stop funds that are paid in federal income tax returns by millions, hundreds of millions of Americans across the country. Every state pay federal income tax. Um, there's been a movement by the wealthy or corporations to not to stop the government for using that for things like this, for helping people in disasters, for helping people get us a good start to their life, things like education, all kinds of stuff. There's been a movement by these corporations to stop folks and stop the government from using funds that way, so that the money can be used for private corporations and even, I mean, I don't understand what the point is, because you save time, you save energy, you save money when you do collective bargaining. Not that everything has to be collective bargaining, but usually something. But the government is collective bargaining. That's why they got everybody paying federal taxes. To do what though? If it wasn't collective bargaining, everyone wouldn't be paying federal taxes. Just like on the state level, if that wasn't collective bargaining, why would you be paying state tax in the first place? People are already have submitted to doing collective bargaining, right? Which should mean you're getting assistance in a far more effective means to the masses. But yet there's a movement against that. And right now, when people need help, uh, we should be saying, hey, the federal government has 27 billion GDP that they've been operating under. I mean, no, the GDP of the US is 27 billion. Federal government, I don't even know how many trillions it is, but it's a lot. It's more than any other industrialized nation per capita, meaning per person, right? Of all the nations that the federal government should be able to assist in all types of things, it should be the United States government. And it's not a diss to the government. I'm not dissing the country. It's a political problem. It's a political debate. And the ineffectiveness is a politically induced ineffectiveness. The homelessness is a politically induced homelessness. The lack of education, politically induced. The lack of engineers, qualified engineers, politically induced. Lack of access to hospitals and medical care, politically induced. Lack of adequate housing. I'm talking about per person across the country, federal level, politically induced. It's not a money problem. It's a political problem. And it's taking ahead right now. So it's really sad. It's really sad.
And I want to be clear, this is not the only aid the survivors can request from FEMA.
This is not the only aid. So people that was like, that's $750 ain't shit. It's not the only aid. They're spelling that out to you. That's one. That's just immediate, right in your pocket. But it's not the only. It's just for right now at this moment.
More programs are going to be available through the disaster declaration, but this assistance that survivors can get now and get it fast. We're also helping the state and local law enforcement personnel keep people safe.
And it's through the federal government. It's not even through your state. So you don't have to worry about a state actor prohibiting you or discriminating against you or stopping you because of some other reason. This money is for Republicans and Democrats, people that are affected, regardless of your religion, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of all of that, because you are all affected. Mel Gibbs, who's basically, I don't know if he's a Republican, but he's damn sure again, he's not a believer in climate change. His house was burned down. I mean,
for Governor Newsom additional support on that front too. For example, the Defense Department, military personnel can help direct traffic, evacuate people where traffic lights have been destroyed. Finally, I want to thank all the first responders. And I often say, God made man, then he made a few firefighters. And these are men and women. The firefighters in Los Angeles are proof of that. The scope, the scale, and the erratic movements of these fires is truly unprecedented. I mean, it's truly unprecedented. And but day after day, these firefighters have been pulling 24-hour shifts, rushing the flames with hurricane-force winds as well, to rescue people, to evacuate neighborhoods, and put these fires out. Now I speak for the American people and I say, we owe you, we're with you, and we're going to make sure you get every resource you need. I want to turn over to
I like what Biden said. He said, I want to tell the American people, we owe you. That's what he said. And I think Americans need to let that sink in. The fact that the United States is a powerful country, most powerful country on earth. The business people in the United States are pretty much the most powerful on earth, the richest, They owe, the ones that are successful, the most successful, owe it to the everyday American citizen who is not rich, who is in need, who does need camaraderie, who does need your patriotism to come out. And it's a time to find out who's going to be a patriot to the everyday American citizen. Who's going to be a patriot to them, regardless of their class? I mean, yeah, that too, poor or middle class, regardless of their political affiliation. You can't be a patriot if you're not for freedom of politics for other political. If you can't see people of other political affiliations as fellow Americans, and you want to protect their lives as well. That's not patriotism. Patriotism is when you accept on a base level that we all are valued. That's patriotism. We're going to find out who the patriots are. Other nations have done it. Other nations have expressed patriotism across political platforms for all their citizens to make sure that all the citizens have a base, decent life, a dignified, decent life. The United States can do it too. Sometimes you just need a disaster to make people realize it. Sadly enough. But in the next 4 years, because climate change has not just, it's still a problem, we could expect more opportunities to become patriots through disasters. Opportunity to put down the politics and just get back to business of the taxpayers. Because after all, paying taxes got nothing to do with political parties, really. Paying taxes has something to make sure that the nation runs and that the people have the basics of what they need. That's what paying taxes for. It's not for anything else. If the average American citizen did not pay taxes, there would be no American wealthy and there would be no American government. So folks need the infrastructure to move forward with their lives. And they need it on the federal level. And they need political parties to stop screwing over the safety of American taxpayers, to stop screwing it over. You've seen rich have their homes burnt down. You've seen the poor have their homes burnt down. And you've seen the middle class have their homes burnt down in California. You've seen Republicans have their homes burnt down. You've seen Democrats have their homes burnt down. It should be a rap about what to do. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to see how it goes.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you've said, what we have been witnessing is truly mass devastation. And whether we are talking about Silmar.
From actually being in California.
Okay, they cut Kamala Harris off. Yo, I really hope Kamala Harris runs in 2028. You see, I really hope she runs in 2028. Myself, she talked about these things. The Democratic Party talked about these things. I'm supporting the people that talk about these things. I don't care and do something about these things. I don't care what political party you are a part of. But right now, the Republican Party is against climate action. And they in the United States, the Republican Party, have been the ones funding the fight against climate action. So I don't have a choice but to support Biden and Kamala Harris in the Democratic Party. I don't have a choice. There's no other choice. You want climate change? Vote for some people that want climate. I mean, you want an answer to climate change? Vote for some people that want to answer for climate change. You want assistance for climate change? Vote for some people, because this is going to be probably the main factor in your lives. This is the number one thing that's going to hit your lives. I'm telling you. And it has way many ways of affecting you. What's going to happen to your drinking water when you got E. coli? Because you got flooding, because you had a hurricane. Do you think the waters are going to get lesser? Do you think the flooding is going to get less? Not without climate change action, and not without states that are willing to do their part also independently, as well as work and follow the federal mandates and follow the federal initiatives. It's going to take all that. It's going to take all of that. Man, let's see what else. Hearts and prayers out to the people affected. And I'm saying that I don't, I live in a country outside of the US, although I'm an American citizen. I live in a country that's made great strides and takes climate change seriously, right? Among other things. They take, in Denmark, they take healthcare seriously. There's a major investments in it. They take, collective bargaining seriously for housing, for healthcare and education. They do. It's a capitalistic democracy. They just fund the public sector more. That's what they do. You see what I mean? And people are getting trained, getting educated in Denmark, and they're traveling the world, working in corporations, doing good on the earth. You see what I mean? Like, that's what a society should want to do. Actually be able to assist other nations through sending out consultants and experts that are educated in certain industries, that are educated in certain sciences, and not just isolate itself from the world and become, individualistic, to the extreme level where you don't matter. My neighbor doesn't matter. My neighbor's life doesn't affect my life. Your neighbor's life affects your life. Get over it. Yeah. Let me go back to Roland now, because Roland has some folks on there, and I was listening to some of their stories. Here we go.
Getting burned. He ended up cutting his hand in 2 different places because he couldn't believe the
family. This is a family that was caught in the fire. There's a historic Black community devastated, totally destroyed. And it shouldn't even come down to your race or your color when you're dealing with this stuff. It shouldn't even come down to it. This is about basic humanity. And if you can't express some basic humanity, you're going to have a lot of problems, because people are stronger together. That's what collective bargaining is all about. Acknowledgement of each other. I'm not saying it should be one way. I'm saying it should be always,
Well, perception becomes reality. And it was and in the wake of Vice President Kamala Harris losing to that conviction
was first started.
Oh, they're talking about the job market is going to decline. They're talking about the economy is going to decline. But hold on, let's get to the family here with the what their story is about. I think it's here.
Thriving Black community. In 1921, white Tulsans murdered hundreds of residents of Greenwood, burned their homes and churches, looted their belongings.
What are they? Hold on. What? They're talking about the Tulsa riots? But hold on.
Massacre.
But this is someone that heads up a federal agency here.
The one
Assistant Attorney General DOJ Civil Rights Division. Okay. Christine Clark.
123-page report documents the findings made during a review and evaluation of the massacre conducted under the Emmett Till Unsolved Civil Rights Crime.
Okay, they're talking about the Tulsa race riots. Okay, so this is great. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put this link in the chat for folks to check out, because dang, I'm gonna watch this. This is interesting, but I want to keep it on some of the climate change stuff. I want to show people some of the disinformation that's out there too. But first, I want to hear about this. Here we go. Here we go.
For people who don't understand, and again, I think a lot of folk out here, and how when you look at a lot of this news coverage, they focus on celebrities, but it's a lot of people who are not celebrities, who are not rich, who didn't have 5 and 6 and 7, 20 and $30 million homes, who now are trying to figure out where do they go next.
That's true. That's true. My parents worked really, really hard for everything that they had, and just like that, it's all gone. It burned down to the ground. It's all gone.
When did first of all, where exactly were your parents' home? Where was it?
They lived in Altadena, so their home.
If for folks who don't know what Altadena is, explain what Altadena is.
So Altadena is the foothills right above Pasadena, California. So it's kind of like at the top of the mountain, and my parents lived on a private road where there were like 13 houses, and 11 of them are gone.
11 of the 13 are gone.
They're gone. That's my parents' home right there. That's their home.
When I want to get back to disinformation, I made this comment earlier. There's literally people out there that were talking about this is what happened because of Gaza, because you didn't take interest in Gaza, because of your policy on Gaza. Yo, the American politics has room for empathy for Gazans and Israeli folk, right? People hurt on either side. And that's been expressed the entire time. There's a lot of people affected by this that do actually acknowledge what has happened between Israelis and Palestinians and have empathy for it, mass amounts of empathy for it. When you have events happen, folks in other nations, don't always have the ability to make two groups of people choose peace and choose fairness. That is ultimately, just like in the United States, no one can make Americans treat each other right. Do you know how long people have been waiting for that to happen? If it could happen, it would have happened already. And that's a conflict. It's the same thing with Israel and Palestine. Nobody can do that. No, it's the same thing. People have to be willing to have dialogue that induces peace, just like in the United States of America. And this is where I criticize the media. Corporate media has not done the American citizens justice when it comes to the facts about climate change. They have not. And you will even see maybe some of their buildings might get burnt out. That's how incredulous it is. I hope corporate media decides that taking climate change seriously and putting out the facts and disputing vigorously the disinformation about climate change, I hope they see that as something life-sustaining for their corporations, because it just might be. It just might be. There's no future in playing the American people. There's no future in playing the American taxpayer. There's no future. You might get a gain from it right away. You might get that cash injection right away. But look, corporate media is hurting harder than it's ever hurt. They're losing loads of money. They're losing watch viewers. Nobody's watching these after the election. People realize droves of people. I'm talking about millions and millions and millions. Was like, we're not watching CNN anymore. And I'm not talking about people that believe in disinformation. I'm talking about people that know disinformation, has been allowed to spread through even these corporations. Why? Because they didn't vigorously bring the facts. They pretended like disinformation was freedom of speech or a possible, alternative to an opinion, a valid opinion. That's how they took it. Oh, you're spreading disinformation on this side? Okay, that's your opinion. And then on the other side, the facts are opinion. No, facts are not opinion. And I'm telling you, it takes a lot of work to get to this bad point. It takes a lot of failure to get to this bad point. Not just one group, not just one person, not just two people, not just a state. No, it takes a whole lot, you know. So folks should think about that. I mean, this is just really, really sad. I don't know what more to be said, but here,
when did it all start? Because this moved extremely quickly.
Well, it started, their power was turned off at 2 p.m. Today's Friday. On Wednesday. That's their home. Wow. Oh my God. And so they turned the power off at 2. And they said the fire was on the east of Altadena, and that it wasn't coming their way. So that was at 2 p.m. So they were without communication from 2 p.m. all the way until the end. But at about 3 a.m. in the morning, they heard someone on a bullhorn saying, "You need to get out and get out now." And when they woke up, they looked out the back door and the fire was in the backyard.
Wow. And that's the thing that, I mean, you've got people out here, folk who ain't even from California, folk who don't even know anything about wildfires, who have no experience whatsoever when it comes to forest management, blaming the governor, blaming the mayor. Oh my God, where's the water? And I was seeing other experts yesterday who said that you had 100-mile-an-hour winds. You had, and first of all, you said the power was cut off. So explain to people why the power was cut off. Wasn't it because of the winds? They were afraid that the winds were going to snap the power lines and that was going to spark fires?
Absolutely, that is correct. So the winds were very extreme, and they were ferocious, and they were. It was very windy up there. When I spoke to my parents, it was super windy, and so they were, they were.
See that? This is an interesting point right here. They're saying that power lines were cut to stop more fires from starting because the sparks, because of the wind is so extreme that the power lines were projected to have sparks. And so to preserve, to stop the spreading or to help stop the spreading and stop more fires from starting, maybe through sparks, they cut down the power lines. So folks also didn't have power. But here's the thing. Flip over to the East Coast with the hurricanes. Power went out too. Why did power go out? Same thing, because of the winds. What's going to happen with it? Are the power lines going to be buried? Because that's what most countries are doing that are, that are ahead of climate change or ahead of the United States dealing with climate change. They're burying the lines. There's people in states that are saying, oh, it's too expensive to bury lines. It's too expensive to do that. So you're really going to set your own citizens up to have no power in an emergency when they could have power? And every second, these people argue against burying the lines is another catastrophe that's waiting to hit where you will have no power. And I'm not saying this to criticize California. I'm just saying, like, hey, where's the federal government? And you need manpower to do these jobs. And on top of it, when you're late, when the federal government is late, the change doesn't get there on time to help you. It'll be there in time to help some folks 10 years, 15, 20 years down the line. That's what being 20 years late looks like on climate change. So the real big question people should be asking right now is, how is climate change going to affect your life? Maybe you didn't get caught in this fire, but ask yourself, how's it going to affect your life? Because it is, y'all. It definitely is. And even this fire is going to affect Americans' lives. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Because California is part, how much of the GDP, how much of the wealth of the nation comes out of California? Man, let's ask that question. Let's ask that question. Oh my goodness. Uh-oh. Stop that. Why did they do this, man? Okay, let's see here. Stop. How much of the GDP of the USA GDP is contributed by the state of California? California significantly contributes to the United States economy. I hope y'all can hear this. Let me pull it up on the screen. In 2024, California's gross domestic GDP was approximately $4.0 trillion, accounting for about 14% of the national GDP, which stood at $29 trillion. So, you're about to lose. Could you lose $4 trillion in this next year's GDP coming up with Trump coming into power? What do you think Trump's going to do about that? That brings it down to what? 25, 24 trillion GDP now? 4 trillion less, possibly? I mean, I don't know, 2 trillion? We're going to find out how much of the federal GDP is affected. The federal government's, infrastructure is going to be affected. The federal government's operating funds, FEMA funds, is going to be affected because $4 trillion is a whole lot of $1 billion. California contributes to about 14% of the national GDP. Let's look. What states contribute the most to the USA GDP? I hope they can it should be able to figure out my typing errors here. It's not typing errors, it's my keyboard. The top states contributing the most to the country's GDP reflect the diversity of the nation's economic strengths. As of recent data 2024, here are the states with the largest contributions to the US GDP and their economic highlights. California, y'all, is number 1. So you're about to take an economic hit. Americans are taking an economic hit. They're going to take an economic hit right now. Texas is number 2. New York is number 3. Hey.
The top US states contributing the most to the country's GDP reflect the diversity of the nation's economic strengths. As of recent data 2024, here are the states with the largest contributions to the US GDP and their economic highlights. 1. California. GDP $4.8 trillion, approximately 14% of US GDP. Key industries: technology, Silicon Valley, entertainment, Hollywood, agriculture, and renewable energy. Highlight: if California were a country, it would rank as the 5th largest economy in the world. 2. Texas, $2.9 trillion. Key industries: oil and gas, technology, manufacturing, and agriculture. Highlight: the state's energy sector plays a massive role, particularly in oil production. 3. $2.3 trillion. Key industries: financial services, Wall Street, media, and technology. Highlight: home to the New York Stock Exchange and major global financial institutions. Shasta 4, Florida, $1.5 trillion. Key industries: tourism, aerospace, agriculture, and real estate. Highlight: a booming tourism industry, supported by theme parks and beaches, drives much of its economy. 5. Illinois, $1 trillion. Key industries: manufacturing, finance, and agriculture. Chicago is a hub for transportation, finance, and global trade. 6. Pennsylvania, 100 GDP. Key industries: energy, natural gas, manufacturing, and healthcare. Highlight: the state's Marcellus Shale reserves contribute significantly to its economy. 7. Ohio, $800 billion. Key industries: manufacturing, auto industry, healthcare, and agriculture. Highlight: a leader in advanced manufacturing and the automotive supply chain. 8. Georgia, $750 billion. Key industries: transportation, film production, and agriculture. Highlight: Atlanta is a major hub for logistics and entertainment. 9. New Jersey, $700 billion. Key industries: pharmaceuticals, finance, and logistics. Highlight: proximity to New York City bolsters its financial sector. 10. Washington, $650 billion. Technology: Amazon, Microsoft, aerospace, Boeing, and coffee production, Starbucks. Highlight: a leader in tech innovation and global trade through its ports. These states dominate the US economy due to their diverse industries, innovation hubs, and large populations, which drive demand and production.
Here's your news, folks. That is the US. Yeah, so get ready, y'all.